Yes guys, welcome back to the FPL Fan Show. My name is FPL Nacho and welcome back to my Game Week 10 team preview / Game Week 9 recap. As always, I'm going to be looking at my team going forward to this weekend, looking at how I got on. Of course, it was a tricky game week. That Game Week 9 was a bit of a minefield if you ask me. And we're going to be looking at some of the overperformers, underperformers and reviewing those popular transfers ins and out to let you guys know if it is even worth you guys considering them for your squad. So as always guys, if you want to support the channel, be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and with 3 or 4 videos dropping weekly, don't be missing a thing, so hit that notification bell. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, before we get into this, it is worth saying that all of the information here and graphics are provided by fantasyfootballfix.com. Brilliant website, be sure to check it out, link in the bio. So first up, we're going to be looking at the Game Week 9 overperformers. And before we shoot the messenger guys, I know that Mason Mount and Salah are on this list, and I'm not saying that they've had a overperforming game week and that they are bad assets. I just want to bring to attention that even though they scored 24 points, both got a hat-trick, they weren't necessarily on target to get 24 points. And when we look at this here, we do look at the expected FPL points, which you can see second from the right there. So you can see for Mason Mount, 24 points he scored, but an expected FPL points of 13.47. So a huge discrepancy in regards to what he was expected to score and his actual FPL points. And it's worth saying, even if he did just get 13 points, that's still a massive haul for an FPL asset, especially at the price range of Mason Mount. But when we look at the actual underlying stats, you can see he had a brilliant game week, 5 shots, 4 of those on target, 3 attempted assists, and importantly, an XG of 1.31. Now, it's worth mentioning that, of course, includes that penalty that he did have, of course, with the retake as well. But I really do think that still, even though he did overperform according to his underlying stats, still had a brilliant game week. And I really do think if managers are looking at a Chelsea asset going forward, I mentioned it in a recent Fantasy Football Fix video, he is probably still the go-to guy in that midfield. I know Havertz is the shiny new toy player in that number 9 position, but Mason Mount for me ticks all the boxes. Guaranteed game time, especially when the likes of Lukaku and Werner come back into the squad. So he is definitely one to target. And again, although he did overperform, underlying stats are brilliant. And I really do think he is definitely someone in that short term in that Chelsea fixtures coming up. Now I know Mo Salah being overperforming this game week, I shouldn't be even slandering the guy, but it is worth mentioning that he did still exceed his XG. So looking at it right now, shot volume was ridiculous. What we expect from Mo Salah, 7 shots, 4 of those on target, and an XG of 1.84. And in this case, didn't have a penalty. So this is all from open play. So ridiculous stats. And when you consider the opposition as well on paper, yeah, it's brilliant stats really. Even an XA of 0.39, obviously picking up that 1 assist in the game. 15.62 expected FPL points, and he actually came away with 24. So again, he did exceed his expected FPL points, but again, even if he did match his expected FPL points, it would still be a 15-point haul, which is ridiculous. So guys, if you didn't know it already, Mo Salah is the go-to captain for the foreseeable future. His effective ownership with people captaining him is going to be ridiculous over the next 4 or 5 game weeks. So if you are tempted to go against the grain, against Mo Salah, you really got to be comfortable with your captaincy pick and really be confident that he is going to outscore Mo Salah. Because right now, over the coming game weeks, I don't see many players that are going to be able to do so. Now, next up is going to be a player that we discussed about briefly in a few videos ago, and that's going to be Burnley's Cornet. Now, somebody who really isn't a Burnley player at all. They've plucked this guy out. He is a brilliant option for them, and he picked up 2 goals over in Game Week 9. Brilliant performance, and obviously helping Burnley get that 2-2 draw. But when we do look at the underlying stats here, he came with a 15-point haul, but only had an expected FPL points of 7.07. And although he's been a really, really good asset for Burnley so far, obviously a few injuries here and there has hindered his game time. But at 6 million, with that kind of points haul, it's probably getting a lot of traction from the market. Managers look at him as a potential option. But I would, a bit of caution here. He had 2 shots, 2 of those on target, and scored from those 2. It only had an expected goals of 0.33. So although it's a small sample size, I would say that it isn't the shot volume or the XG that I would like to see from an asset before I pull the trigger on bringing him in. Now, if he does up the shot volume a little bit, the expected goals increases over a duration of time, then I think it could be an option going forward. But right now, I would not be considering Cornet right now. I need to see a little bit more over the long term, but still a really good haul at 15. But not really sustainable if he continues his underlying stats. Smith Rowe at Arsenal, again, brilliant result. And I know a lot of managers who benched him or even sold him. So well done to those who did hold on to him and start him in that fixture against Aston Villa. Obviously picked up the goal, 2 shots, 1 of those on target, and 4 attempted assists. So a really good overall display from him. But again, low on the XG at 0.24 and a 0.17 expected assist, 6.98 expected FPL points, 13 actual points. So again, small sample size, as I mentioned. We're only looking at one individual game week, but the shot volume, the expected assists, I would say that managers got lucky to get the 13-point haul. I know that's probably going to offend a few, but I think Smith Rowe at 5.5 million. This is where the underlying stats and the price tag come into the equation here. Although it isn't necessarily the highest shot volume, when I look at that price point there, I still think that's brilliant value for an asset around that sort of area. And with Arsenal's fixtures and the form that Arsenal are in right now, I think that's still a nice pickup for Smith Rowe. So I wouldn't put off anybody going for Smith Rowe at 5.5 million. Now, Hudson-Odoi is another one which I would just, a bit of caution really. We mentioned him briefly about how he could be a great option for game week 9. However, going forward in the longer term, you need to consider your options over 3 or 4 game weeks. And he is definitely somebody who for a 1-week punt was a brilliant option. I would not be looking to bring him in, guys, at all. Now, I know he's 5.3 million, but had 70 minutes. We know that when Lukaku and Werner come back with Pulisic, he is going to be sitting on the bench week in, week out. And when we look at his underlying stats, I know he had an 11-point haul, but 1 shot on target, 1 attempted assist, and an XG of 0.35 doesn't really suggest to me that he necessarily was deserving of the 11-point score that he did get. And I really don't think that's a shot volume you want to see from an asset as well. Now, I know at 5.3 million, he is tempting, but I'd much rather go for Smith Rowe 100%, who's going to get more game time in that Arsenal team. Last of all, I want to touch on Southampton's Broha, now a very popular pick. And at 5 million, if he does stamp himself down in this Southampton side, I don't really care what the underlying stats are. If he's playing week in, week out in this Southampton team, he is somebody we all need to consider because he just ups you from that 4.5 million where there's nobody who plays guaranteed game time in that area. And it gives you so much more money to play with in your squad. Now, his underlying stats are nowhere near as good as game week 8. It's worth mentioning because in game week 8, he had an XG of 0.97, looked brilliant on paper. Now, I would suggest that it's probably a bit lucky that he did get this 8-point haul. Only 2 shots, 1 of those on target, an XG of 0.17 and 0 XA. So, you know, bit lucky here to get the 8-point haul, but he is still scoring those goals. And that suggests to me that he is still going to get a starting spot in Hasenhüttl's team. And with Southampton's fixtures coming up, I still think he's a really good pick. What I would say is minutes. I think with the likes of Adams, with Armstrong, as we mentioned, with Redmond, I do think that even though he is going to keep scoring potentially, he will still get substituted off or even be brought on as a super sub. So at 5 million, if you're willing to take the risk of his game time, I think he's still a good pick. But this week, underlying stats were not as strong as game week 8. Right, guys, of course, we need to touch on the underperformers for game week 9. And again, this is going to be a bit of a small group of players, really. I really didn't think there was many standout options in game week 9. A lot of players that really did exceed their XG. So in terms of underperforming, I picked out 4 here. And I also think they're a good selection of players who managers might be considering over the coming game weeks. And you know, Benteke to start off, I don't know who's considering him, but 6.3 million, of course, played 90 minutes. And he actually had a brilliant game in game week 9 for those who didn't watch it. He has 7 shots, 2 of those on target, and 3 attempted assists with an expected goals of 1.74. So really, really well-rounded display from him. As somebody who's really, really benefited from Edouard coming into this Crystal Palace team. I think a lot of managers expected him to roll over, be a backup striker, but it seems like he's kind of stepping up to the plate a little bit. And with the creativity around him, with Olise, with Edouard, with Zaha, with Gallagher, it looks like he's getting the delivery and service that is needed for a player like him. Not the sort of guy who's going to be creating his own chances, very dependent on the team around him, giving him then creativity and deliveries. And I think he could definitely be a bit of a shrewd pick going forward. I know Crystal Palace's fixtures are starting to turn now. We get a good run, and 6.3 million is very hard to pick him over the likes of Ivan Toney, but he's quietly going about his business. And as I mentioned, 7 shots and with an expected FPL points of 9.61. He's very unlucky to come over only 5 points. And I know he's done well over the last 2 game weeks. So while it's tricky to sell Benteke because of his recent FPL pass, I definitely think he should be on someone's watch list as the underlying stats are good and there's been a bit of consistency over the last few game weeks. So don't laugh, but Benteke is definitely on the watch list for many managers. Now, Aubameyang is another one. I touched on in a recent video about being a bit of a differential Lukaku replacement. Now, at 10 million, he's just gone up from 9.9 million. It was hard to justify him because of the Arsenal team, and Aubameyang recently, especially last season, really struggling to really get double-digit hauls and justify that premium price as a forward. But with 5 total shots, 3 on target, we're always very common to seeing Aubameyang having high XG. He's always been a guy who's always had big chances, loads of big chances created, and in this game an XG of 1.3. Now, of course, having the penalty in that game has skewed his XG a little bit, so I'm not reading too much into this, but I have seen a bit of a consistency with Aubameyang, and now he's getting game time in the Arsenal team. Arsenal are starting to get a little bit of a rhythm going in the league. Although I don't recommend him as an option to managers right now, I do think with Vardy getting potentially injured, Ronaldo out of favour, Kane wanting to leave Spurs, Lukaku injured, I think with managers that are sitting in the million rank right now and really want to have a go at cracking back into the top million, he could be a really nice differential going forward. And again, unlucky not to have a bigger score. And another Arsenal player that managers are really unlucky with, and someone that I definitely struggled with this game week, was Saka. Now, of course, was potentially going to be injured for game week 9, ended up playing, and very unlucky not to get any sort of returns. Only came away with 2 points, but an expected FPL points of 6.17. And partly due is because of his shot volume, 4 shots, 3 attempted assists, an XG of 0.69. Really do think that managers were lucky to get away with him who weren't owners really. And for me, definitely who's an owner right now, originally looking at selling him because of the injury, definitely looking like a firm hold right now, especially with the fixtures coming up for Arsenal looking pretty favourable over the medium term. I think returns are going to come for Saka, and I think with 90 minutes under his belt, I think he is probably one of the players that Arteta definitely trusts in this Arsenal team. So I think if you're a Saka owner, I definitely would look at holding him, definitely. Whether to buy, probably wouldn't buy him, but I definitely would hold. And last up is going to be Crystal Palace's Elise. Now, this is definitely somebody that I've seen a lot of podcasts talking about right now. His ownership is ridiculous. I believe it's below 0.5%, and he's starting to get a bit of game time in his Crystal Palace team. Now, 66 minutes in game week 9 doesn't really suggest to me that necessarily he's going to be someone we target over the coming game weeks, but definitely somebody to put on our watch list. Now, didn't have any shots, but he is the creative type and had 2 attempted assists with an XA of 0.64. Now, again, not enough underlying stats and with such a small sample range to target him, but another one for the watch list because Crystal Palace as a whole, I really do like as a team. And I think if he gets a bit of game time over the course of maybe the Christmas period, he could be a brilliant differential of 5.4 million. So that is a roundup of both the overperformers and underperformers for game week 9. So let's have a look at the popular transfers ahead of game week 10. Okay guys, this is the part where I look at the popular transfers in and out ahead of game week 10. So as always, I'm going to kick it off with the top transfers out because that's always the juicy stuff, guys. And there's a popular theme going on in all of these transfers out, and it is going to be Man United off the back of that 5-0 loss against Liverpool. What a joke that was. So, 5th most transferred out player is Fernandes, 129,000 transfers out so far, and I really do think that this is justified. Now, Fernandes, without penalties or, not even getting penalties, really makes him a difficult hold, especially with the likes of Salah, Mane, offering so much value in the game. And then we look going down into these medium price assets like Raphinha, like Mason Mount, like Phil Foden. Having Fernandes in your side, and again, with the premium forwards available in the game, doesn't make your team very well structured. And Fernandes in his current form, and with the Man United way that they're playing right now, you cannot justify owning Fernandes. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet with this one. If you own Fernandes, with the upcoming fixtures that they have, which are absolutely terrible, unless Solskjaer pulls out a rabbit from his hat, they are going to be struggling over the next 5 or 6 game weeks. So if you're a Fernandes owner right now, I still think selling him is the best move. So I agree with that transfer right now. And 4th most transferred out is going to be Cristiano Ronaldo. Again, somebody who is really struggling over the last few game weeks. Solskjaer's clearly not getting the best out of him. Now, of course, if a new manager comes in, Ronaldo is going to be top of the pile for assets that people are going to be considering bringing in. But in the team that he's playing in right now, the way Solskjaer has got him going, I really don't think that the price tag of Ronaldo is worth justifying in your FPL teams. Now, of course, injury to Lukaku, potential injury to Vardy, Harry Kane looking like he wants to move away. There's not much around that price point that you want to probably go around with. So I would probably suggest for Ronaldo owners, I still think selling Ronaldo is the best move. However, unless we get information from Lukaku or Vardy that go in that if they're available for game week 10. I think if you're going down into a likes of Antonio, if you don't own already, I wouldn't go all the way down to Ivan Toney unless you have a real identity of what you want to do and an idea with the additional cash from investing in the rest of your squad. So I would probably move across reluctantly to Harry Kane, only because of the game week 12 fixtures ahead are absolutely exceptional for Spurs. And I think even though Harry Kane looks so depressed, he could do very well over that period still. So you're kind of pulling early on him, and he might be a bit of a differential because of the recent form of Harry Kane. So I think Ronaldo to Harry Kane is still a very shrewd move in the game. And obviously, off the back of that red card, Pogba is the third most transferred out player ahead of game week 10. Again, had an amazing start to the season, but we covered it in plenty of videos. The underlying stats suggested that it was impossible for him to maintain that form, and that has happened. Of course, him being tossed about in this team's centre mid, left wing, number 10, you have no idea where he's going to play, and it's made it very easy for managers with that red card missing game week 10 for an easy sell. And of course, at that price point, you have plenty of options available. You can either go up into Phil Foden and Man City, who we're going to discuss in a minute. You could easily go down into like Raphinha if cleared fit for game week 10, or of course the likes of Mason Mount of Chelsea, who's had a recent good bit of form. So I think Pogba right now, if you own, again, easy sell for managers. Get away from those Man United assets who are so woeful right now. Second most transferred out player is going to be Marcos Alonso. Now again, this was the issue with Marcos Alonso all the time, was whether or not he was going to be a rotation risk going forward. And with the recent form of Ben Chilwell and the game time that he's been getting, I really think it's more of a case of Tuchel is fully saying that this is my main man, Ben Chilwell. He is going to be starting for me in all games. But that is not to mention that Marcos Alonso will come in from time to time because of the amount of games that Chelsea have to play with the cup competition. So Marcos Alonso for me is a definite sell. He will get the occasional game and maybe the occasional haul, but it is not worth the pain of seeing him bench for the next 3 game weeks potentially. So easy sell. And if you had to sell him, if you go up to the likes of Cancelo or Diaz at Man City, I think those are strong moves. Could go to Reece James at Chelsea, but I'll be a little bit worried about game time still. Otherwise, you go to a safe pick in maybe the likes of Rudiger, or obviously the guy who's kicking him out of the team in Ben Chilwell. And finally, most transferred out player is Lukaku, and I think this is rightly so again. We have no idea how long the injury duration is going to be. Of course, if you own him right now, do not sell him right now. Need to wait until that Friday press conference to get a bit of an idea of what Tuchel says. Now, he could easily come out and say, having brilliant progress, and he is fine for game week 10. So a big tip here, guys, is don't make early transfers if you can avoid it. At Lukaku's price point, unless you're going up to Harry Kane, you can ride out any potential price falls for the time being, because anyone else is going to be cheaper than Lukaku. And as I mentioned, similar to Ronaldo, I think Lukaku to Harry Kane is still a viable move going forward because of the fixtures that he has in the future. Otherwise, maybe going down into a cheaper option, as I mentioned, Ivan Toney's of the world, maybe even Antonio, are solid picks. So that's going to be the transfers out, guys. Let's have a look at the transfers in for game week 10. And first up is going to be Smith Rowe, 5th most transferred out player. I'm not going to talk too much because we obviously discussed him in the Overperformers section. So again, guys, I still think he's a solid option. He's going to be getting game time as Arsenal team. I think we've seen enough of him over a long enough period to see that he is a good asset at that price point. So if you own Smith Rowe, a definite hold. And again, if we're sat on the likes of Raphinha and we get a confirmed injury for the coming game weeks, then Smith Rowe could be a viable option. Now, 4th most transferred in player, and I can't believe people are still bringing him in because I thought everybody would own him by now, is going to be Mo Salah. Now, for those who don't know, he's coming close to 70% ownership, and if you don't own, you just need to get him in because not owning him is just going to kill your rank. And the reason being is because of the form that he's in and the Liverpool way that they're playing right now, returns are on the horizon for him as they have been for the last 8 or 9 game weeks. And the problem is when managers captain Mo Salah, if you go against the grain and he does return, the affected ownership will absolutely destroy your rank. So I think FPL slowly turning into a 14-player game with Mo Salah in every other side. And of course this will change in the future with the Africa Cup of Nations and potential injuries to the Liverpool team or Mo Salah. It will swing eventually. But right now, guys, I think you just need to rip that band-aid off if you don't own him and just bring him in at any cost possible because he is the next captain for the next 4 game weeks. Easy peasy. Now, 3rd most transferred in player is going to be Foden at Man City. And again, we've touched on Phil Foden in recent videos. The guy's on absolute fire right now. And again, when you do buy a Man City player, you are buying a ticket into the lottery, of course. The rotation with Pep can be unpredictable and you really don't know what you're getting with him. It's very similar to the likes of Chilwell and Alonso, but I think the big difference with the likes of Phil Foden and Man City assets is the high ceiling that they do provide. I think Man City are still one of the best teams in the league, and I think with the likes of Phil Foden, we're seeing a player really develop under Guardiola, and I see no reason why he's going to turn into the likes of Mahrez, where he plays once and gets benched for 3. I really think Foden's becoming one of those top 3 players in Guardiola's side, and I think he will get a sustainable run of games, of course, with a sprinkle of benches here and there, because that is Pep's way of managing. So I think Foden right now should be the top of most people's watch lists and transfers going into game week 10. With some really good fixtures coming up, I think that he's a brilliant option if you can afford him. And again, if you have a few injuries in your midfield, going up into him, I definitely would do for sure. Now, Ben Chilwell was the second most transferred in. Again, completely contradicting, obviously, or complementing the Alonso transfer out. I can imagine a lot of managers are doing the sideways move to Chilwell because Chelsea's fixtures are still great. And I would not put off people buying Chilwell right now. Of course, the attack and returns are really starting to show with him and clearly showing what a viable asset he is. One thing I would say, as I mentioned, there is still the rotation risk with Alonso, so that's just worth noting, but I can't put off anybody bringing in Ben Chilwell because he's definitely the number 1 left back in this Chelsea team. And finally, most popular transfer in, and rightly so, is going to be Mason Mount of Chelsea. Now again, he was a bit of a debate between him or Kai Havertz, but underlying stats for Mason Mount are still really good prior to game week 9. Of course, nothing predicted that hat-trick. It was a brilliant return from him. And again, he's not necessarily going to be on penalties, so don't really think he's going to be a penalty taker in the future. But starting to show the form of last season, I do think he's one of Tuchel's favourite players in the formation of 3-4-3. He will definitely be the right-sided winger / forward. So I think Mason Mount is still a brilliant pick for those managers. And he's currently priced at around 7.5, 7.6 million. Very accessible price. So again, if you have injuries, I would probably prioritise Phil Foden, but Mason Mount would be a very close second in that debate there. So that is a roundup, guys, of the top transfers. Let's have a quick look at how I got on in game week 9 and a few early plans ahead of game week 10. Right, guys, last time, this is going to be my game week 9 review. So here it is, guys. This is the team, and I finished on 87 points, and it was a red arrow down to 103,561. Guys, it's about 3 or 4 red arrows on the trot, and of course, having wildcarded in game week 8 hasn't been the start I wanted. And to be honest with you, off the back of Saturday's fixtures, I'm actually quite happy with the amount of points I did get. Now, of course, went with Ben Foster over Sanchez, as I thought Sanchez was going to get battered, which he did. But of course, picking up those 2 bonus points, I don't think anyone really saw that really. So Ben Foster, happy with that pick. And of course, that Brighton goal really killing my double Man City defence. But long term, I'm still very happy with the 2. And the fixtures coming up, I think there are definitely returns to come. So I'm very, very happy with those. And of course, Trent, didn't really expect a 10-point haul at Old Trafford, but again, still back him as one of the must-have defenders in the game. I know a lot of people rode without him, but I really think he's still the go-to guy, really. Still brilliant offensively, and Liverpool look very strong defensively as well. So he is a season keeper for me without injuries, of course, in the way. And Reece James is the big one. I really took a punt on him in the wildcard, going against Ben Chilwell, the Alonso rotation, as I felt once Reece James fit, he will be the number 1 man in that right wing-back position, with Azpilicueta playing right centre-back. And of course, this is only 1 game week. I'm not getting my hopes up too much. However, I really do think if Tuchel is picking a Champions League final team, he makes that team every day of the week. And I'm really excited about Reece James because he's a little bit cheaper than Chilwell, and I believe he offers everything that Chilwell does offer as well. So he is definitely somebody that I'm excited to have over the coming game weeks. I'm just praying Tuchel continues to give him game time because I think he's a great option. Mo Salah, what can we say about Mo Salah? I think there's been enough said about him, really. If you don't own, just bring him in, rip that band-aid off, and just accept that he is an essential asset right now because the ownership nearly reaching 70%. You'll be a very brave manager to go against the grain with him, and he is going to be my captain for the foreseeable future until I see enough from Liverpool or Salah to suggest otherwise. Now, the 2 big ones, guys, Mbeumo and Raphinha, absolutely killing me for different reasons. Raphinha going off with an ankle injury. We're unsure about the duration of that for him, so we need to wait to the press conferences to see. always stick with Raphinha. If he is available, he stays in my teams. I still think he's brilliant value at that price range, but it's been a very tricky season with him because of the injuries. It's making me question the value of him right now just because of the persistency that he's having with these knocks. So definitely one to monitor. I don't want to sell with him unless he is ruled out for a number of game weeks. So I think my bench in the future game weeks can manage it. And then Mbeumo, again, don't know whether this guy is going to be a bit of a pain in the future because his underlying stats are always brilliant, but the returns aren't necessarily there. And of course, getting taken off what we think is now an injury, another headache to have in FPL. And I think he's still a good option going forward at his price point, but I think a lot of managers were bringing him in, expecting him to be a consistent returner, maybe hovering around the double digits every now and then. I think at his price point, we get what we get with him. He's an out of position player. If he's available or he's maybe a 1 week knock, I definitely think I'm going to hold on to him. I don't feel I need to sell him any time soon. And the problem is at his price point, not too much around that price that I'm interested in right now. So fingers crossed that he is available, because we're going to move on to my transfer that I done. And I done Lukaku to Jamie Vardy, and that did not turn out good at all. Now, the only saving grace was the other option I had was Harry Kane. Didn't do any better. But the big problem with Jamie Vardy, of course, is that he went off at halftime with the injury, and we're unsure how long that's going to be. Now, of the three, I think Jamie Vardy is the priority sell for me if all three were hypothetically ruled out for game week 10. I think at that price point, I think we can invest that money elsewhere and more effectively. So I'm praying that Jamie Vardy is available, because he's somebody I think could do well over the next two fixtures. But with Iheanacho, with Daka doing well as well, and James and Maddison performing well as well, who I think is definitely one to put on the watch list as well, I think Vardy's a little bit of a worry for me. So I'm praying that he is confirmed fit. If he isn't, I'm probably going to look to move him on, and I might even just rip a band-aid and spend that money that I've got in the bank up into Harry Kane for those game week 12 fixtures. But again, I'll talk about that in my video later on in the week about my game week 10 transfers. And the last two, Tony, 2-point haul, again, very similar to Mbeumo. Ivan Toney's getting a lot of love right now, but not necessarily because of his FPL returns, because although his underlying stats are decent and Brentford are playing well, his actual returns are not there right now. Now, I think at his price point, I still think he's a hold for me, but I just don't want to get into the delusional category where I think that he is actually a better asset than he is. But right now, I would say we're in the territory of a no sell, no buy right now for Tony. I need to see a little bit more from him on the pitch to justify people buying him from now on in. And last up was going to be Antonio. I didn't really get the hype about selling him. He's still one of the best value assets in the game. He's proved it year on year that he can score against any team, and he proved that against Spurs, although that's not much doing against Spurs. So that was a good result for him and really helped my team out this week, and he is definitely a hold for the foreseeable future, maybe until Calvert-Lewin returns in 4 game weeks time. And on the bench, I missed out on another Livramento return. I've missed out on all of them this season. I've only have myself to blame, and he might be on the bench for game week 10 as well. But obviously, I was right thinking that they weren't going to keep a clean sheet. I didn't really expect him to get attacking returns, but it's brilliant to see that he has that side of his game, and I definitely think he will be a starter in my team once I have that balance in my squad where I might need to start him. So he's definitely a great player to have in the squad. And I touched on about Saka being an unfortunate underperformer. I think he could have a good game week this week coming up if he is ruled fit and available. So someone I definitely want to hold on to going forward in the foreseeable future. But as I mentioned, guys, I'm going to be dropping my game week 10 team reveal probably on Thursday or Friday, where I'm going to be definitely showing my confirmed team, or at least my confirmed plans to you guys. But right now it's a little bit early because of the 3 injuries. I can't commit to any sort of strategy right now, but as I mentioned, I will definitely make a transfer if Vardy is ruled out, because I think that's too much money invested in the squad. So as I mentioned, guys, a red arrow, but I'm still super confident on my squad. Right, guys, that is going to wrap up today's video. Really hope you guys have enjoyed it. Of course, this is going to be a regular feature in the show, looking at my game week performance, looking at the underlying stats, and of course, previewing the upcoming game week. So hopefully it's provided you guys some value and a bit of insight into some players you might want to target for game week 10. So coming up this week, guys, we're going to be doing the showdown again. Thanks for the support last time. I think it went down well, where we're matching up popular debates and players and letting you guys know which the best player to go for is. And of course, I'm going to be doing my Game Week 10 team reveal probably Thursday or Friday. So be sure to check that out because I have a lot to think about in my team. And there could be some big moves, as I mentioned, if Jamie Vardy is ruled out. So you don't want to be missing that one, guys. And as always, a big shout out for Fantasy Football Fix for letting me provide the graphics and the data. Link in the bio for those. And if you want to show the support channel, guys, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and of course, that notification bell. So I will see you guys later on in the week. Have a great day. Cheers.